Welcome to Unlocking Your Truth, another podcast by Dr. Lesley Phillips.
Hello everybody, and welcome to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Lesley and Corey.
Hello everyone, it's nice to see you all again.
Yeah, we're delighted to be live in the studio this evening, and from
the wonderful lands of...
Yes, broadcasting from the unceded territory of the Stolo Nation here in Abbotsford at CIVL on 101.7 FM. And like I said, we're live in the studio tonight, so tonight's a really great night for regular listeners to phone in and ask your questions, because you will get a complimentary reading live on air if you do so. So I will read the phone number a couple of times, and maybe I'll read it out now before we go into tonight's topic.
So get a pencil and paper or your cell phone out and just plug it in there, but don't call just yet.
The number is 604-504-7441, extension 4142. That's 604-504-7441, extension 4142. Well, listeners, as you know, Unlocking Your Truth is a talk show about metaphysics and spirituality. And every week we have a different topic, a different exploration. And sometimes we have a guest. Tonight we don't have a guest, but we do have a cool topic to talk about.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah. So tonight's topic is ESP, Extra-Sensory Perception, and ESP tests.
ESP. How come people don't use that term anymore? Very few people ever use that term, ESP. It's always psychic.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting, isn't it? And extrasensory perception, that term was really created by parapsychologists. It was created by people studying PSI Phenomena. And so it sort of evolved out of, in the late 1800s, was really when scientists first started taking an interest in this, and they studied mediumship. And then in the early 1900s, there actually were some ESP programs that started to be introduced in universities. And the first one was Stanford University in the United States, by a psychologist whose name was J. Edgar Hoover.
Probably not related.
No, it is J. Edgar Hoover.
Oh, it is?
It is J. Edgar Hoover. I didn't know he was a psychologist, but yes. And then, of course... there was the US Stargate program and all of that, which was ESP research related, that started in the 1950s, as well as the Parapsychology Association.
What was the Stargate project? I know the one is on TV.
Well, the Stargate project was a project for studying extrasensory perception and its application, especially specifically remote viewing.
Oh, was that the men looking at goats?
Staring at goats, maybe it was. Yeah. No, it's got an interesting history, but I think that that term tends to be used more by scientists than lay people, and more by psychologists than other people, just because of that historical where it came from. And extrasensory perception, it just means perception that's not accounted for by the use of the known senses, which is the same meaning really as psychic, or intuition. So it's sort of like events and communications that are independent of your normal visual, auditory, or other sensory system. And I think I mentioned the study of these types of events is collectively called the PSI Phenomena, PSI Phenomena. And the way that parapsychology classifies PSI phenomena is basically into about 4 categories of thing. One's telepathy, one is precognition, one is clairvoyance, and one is psychokinesis. And that umbrella of parapsychology can also be used to encompass studies of near-death experiences, reincarnation, apparitional experiences, and synchronicity.
So just a little bit different than the 4 clairs. Slightly.
It's different. And, because I would classify it differently. And so I would relate the abilities to the chakra system. And for me, there are 22 abilities, not just 4, like they might focus on in parapsychology studies. But these are the 4 main areas that they've kind of acknowledged and studied, or they did study, because it got really popular in the 1950s forward, and even was expanding in the 70s. There was a time the Stargate project got dropped in the mid-90s, 1995, but the US government kept on funding psychic research. There's military research funded by the US government even today.
Well, the Russian government as
psychic.
well. I mean, the Russian government made actual strides in it. And also in World War II, Hitler had a whole division to do parapsychological studies and unusual phenomena.
Yeah, that's right. So, if you go online, folks, and you Google ESP, then you'll get a bunch of different online tests that you can do that come up.
Oh, that sounds like fun.
And
not to mention we have one as well, but it's not quite the same as ESP.
Well, no, we'll talk about ours and how they're different and how they're the same, I guess. But the most common one, and many of you might have heard of this, is the most commonly one that's tested for really is precognition. And precognition is the ability to predict the future. And the way that they commonly test for this scientifically is by using Zener cards. And Zener cards were created by a parapsychologist called J.B. Rhine. And they're basically those 5 cards that have the symbol of a circle, a square, a star, a plus sign, and another card that has wavy lines on it. And basically the subject has to predict which card is going to come up next. And it can be done on a computer with a program that has a randomization algorithm, or with a deck of cards that you shuffle, and then the person has to guess what's the card on the top of the deck. And if they can determine the card greater than chance would predict it, at a significant level above chance, then that person is said to have precognitive abilities, and that ability is said to have been demonstrated therefore. Have you seen those Zener cards? Yeah.
Yep, I've seen them. I just always found them curious. I think a lot of that is how you do the experimentation itself. I mean, when you think, if you have a whole deck of cards and you're asking somebody to give you what the top card is, there is a whole bunch of cards involved in that deck. It could be even, subconsciously confusing, well, not subconsciously, but to the consciousness, as opposed to taking a card and holding it up. I mean, I've seen it done both ways, but
yeah. Well, and it is interesting because I think the way they're testing it, and my definition of precognition might be a little bit different, because if you've got a deck of cards and there's a card on top, then in a way it's not a prediction anymore, it's a certainty, because that card's been selected before the person has to guess it. If it's a randomization thing on the computer, then yes, it is, because it's not decided before the person has to do it. But that there's no significant time delay between the card being selected and the person predicting the card, whereas most people who've actually studied how precognitive events take place out there in the world will tell you that typically there's a time delay, and most of the time people are having their precognitive experiences in dreams. And usually, if it's one that comes true, it's within the space of a few days, as opposed to seconds. And so, but anyway, that's sort of like number one. And then another one is telepathy, and telepathy. I mean, precognition is a genuine psychic ability, and so is telepathy. So another one that they is under this umbrella of PSI Phenomena is telepathy. And telepathy is non-verbal communication. And the way that someone will test for telepathy is they'll use a photograph or a drawing or an object, or somebody draws a drawing, and then you have a sender and a receiver, often in a different room. And the sender will send the mental image picture or send the information telepathically to the person who's meant to be receiving. And then that person who is meant to be receiving has no prior knowledge of what might be transmitted. In the Zener cards, you do have prior knowledge, because you know it's going to be one of either five things. It's going to be a square or a circle. But with this, you don't know. And so the receiver might, draw or describe what is coming to them, and then they compare what the sender was sending with what the receiver picked up. You can also use numbers and colours. What colour am I thinking of, or what number am I thinking of? But telepathy, it's basically non-verbal communication. And it is a natural form of communication. It's the way plants communicate, it's the way animals communicate, and humans can communicate in that way as well.
So is empathy, would you call it a clairsentient, similar to that? Somebody that feels they're more reading someone's feelings, though, as opposed to...
Yes, it's a clairsentience to do with emotions. And it's an aspect of the second chakra. Telepathy is an aspect of the fifth chakra. And it's more to do with picking up on vibrations, structured formations of vibrations. The other common things that they have tended to study under this umbrella of parapsychology and PSI Phenomena is psychokinesis. And psychokinesis is the ability to influence a physical system without physical interaction. The classic one being spoon bending. Moving a compass needle without just putting the fluence on it, making a pencil
putting the fluence on
roll on a flat surface.
I'm sorry. That could either come from England or the hillbilly community down south.
I guess it comes from England. And my word for this one would be telekinesis. It encompasses, I would say, that general area of psychokinesis. It also encompasses things like levitation, pyrokinesis, setting something on fire without touching it, being able to materialize something out of thin air.
There's also treatkinesis.
What's that?
Dogs have that when they sit at the edge of a coffee table trying to get the food to come off of the table without jumping up on it. I had a dog who used to practice that quite a bit.
Funny.
Thank you.
So yes, levitation, telekinesis, pyrokinesis, materialization, apports. So people being able to apport themselves from one place to another. Retrocausality, where there is a connection between where the effect comes before the cause of the event.
What'd you call that?
Retrocausality. And And here's an interesting one I hadn't heard of. Thoughtography, which is the ability to burn images on film using the mind.
Huh. I've never heard of that one either.
Yeah. And I guess also would be synchronicity, which has to do with meaningful coincidences that occur and seem to be connected in a meaningful way, and yet there's no causal relationship between them. So these all fall under the umbrella of pyrokinesis. And then finally, I guess the parapsychology PSI Phenomena version of clairvoyance is remote viewing. And this is one of the things that the government was training people, remote viewing. And that's the ability to acquire knowledge about an object or situation or an event by paranormal means, primarily clairvoyance, which is clear vision. And it differs from telepathy, because in telepathy the information is coming from another person, whereas in remote viewing they are obtaining the information directly from the source of information, and classically it would be, I don't know, wanting to spy on the enemy and see what they're getting up to with their nuclear arms program, or somebody's gone missing and remote viewing to locate where that person is and what's happened to them.
I like during the Cold War what the Russians did with the U.S. Embassy, or vice versa. I can't remember which one it was. When they were sending negative energy, they were across the road sending negative energy into the consulates, and it was causing people migraines and negative feelings and depression and things like that. And it was all done, I guess, the fact that we all have a certain amount of telepathy within our being, like you say, 22 of the different abilities, and some are stronger, some and even though we don't know we are using them, they can be used.
Yeah.
And affected.
Yeah, and I mean, my perspective on all of this, like I said, it would be that one of the scientific sort of parapsychology approach takes God out of the equation, really. And I would always want to relate it to spirituality, because in my opinion, psychic abilities are they are divine communication. They are how we naturally communicate as spirit when we don't have a body, because we are not the body. The body's a vehicle we create. So we exist outside the body. Well, how do we communicate? Using our psychic abilities. And then we get in the body and we get these extra senses for tuning into the physical world, and then we tend to just focus on them, but we can still access the psychic abilities while we're in the body.
Yeah, I've had a lot of intuitive insights over the past month, that a month and a half, that I just haven't been following, and it always turns out to my detriment.
Yeah, everybody has psychic abilities because everyone is spirit.
Yeah.
And so they're tools of awareness. And just to what you were saying, like any tool, they can be channeled in an altruistic way, or for personal gain, and because they can be developed by anyone who wishes to, but in a way are best used by humans who are at a certain stage in their evolvement and spiritual maturity. It's like a child playing with matches, some of this stuff can be.
Yeah. True.
So, parapsychology demands real-time measurable results. And in my opinion, most of our ability to manifest, change and heal takes time to show up in our time-space reality. So often there's a gap between the impulse or intention of an energy going out and when it shows up in the reality. Because the pyrokinesis thing is very much to do with, it's sort of like a manifestation, physical reality level. Well, so is healing. So is manifestation. So
where would psychopatry, when somebody feels jewelry? Psychometry. So where does that fall into? Is it telepathy or?
No, it's a completely distinct ability in its own right.
Okay.
And it's a combination of the 6th and 7th chakra and the hand chakras working together to feel the energy of an object and read the energy frequency stored in an object. So the idea of that is that if somebody commonly wears an object like a piece of jewelry or even a piece of clothing, that object is immersed within their energy field and will pick up their energy signature. And therefore, a psychic can hold that object and through the object pick up information about the owner. Mm-hmm. Because it's got their energy within it. That's none of the things that we've talked about on the list so far. It's something separate.
Okay.
And so, like I said, I developed my psychic ability blueprint to help people understand their own unique internal profile of abilities, of psychic abilities in relation to their life purpose. And there's more than these 4 that they study in parapsychology. There's 22 of them. And of course, we're not going to go into all of them on this show tonight, but we have covered them in other shows before.
I think I'm reading your mind. I think you think we're going to a break.
Yes, that's exactly what I think. We'll be back in a minute, listeners. You've been listening to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Lesley and Corey. Welcome back, listeners. You're tuning in to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Lesley and Corey.
I'm here too.
And tonight on Unlocking Your Truth, we've been talking about ESP, extrasensory perception, and psychology, and different types of psi phenomena. And we're talking about the commonly available ESP tests that you can find online to test your psychic abilities. And the most classic one for the testing of precognitive ability are Zener cards, Zener cards. And these are those cards that have 5 symbols: a circle, a square, a star, a plus sign, and some wavy lines. And the idea is you see if you can predict them ahead of time. And Corey mentioned before the break that we actually have created some of our own tests for the psychic abilities as we classify them. So I classify them into 22 different psychic abilities, and they relate to the chakra system, and they relate to your life purpose as well, because everyone is an infinite, eternal being with access to all of these different forms of divine communication. And in any lifetime, we will bring a specific profile of those in to assist us in what we came here to do. And so at the moment, we've got 5 of these tests. We've created 22 of them actually, but we've got 5 of them online. And so one of them is test your psychic senses, which is sort of like an overall test. And then we've got one to test for your clairvoyance, your claircognizance, your clairsentience, and your clairaudience. And just in brief, clairaudience is the ability to hear as spirit. So it's where you would hear nothing there that's talking or making a noise, but you would hear something. You would receive an auditory transmission of some kind, but not hearing it with your physical ears, with your psychic sense of clairaudience. A classic example of that actually is, I think most people have had the experience when they've been either drifting off to sleep or waking up in the morning and you hear someone say your name and nobody said your name, but you distinctly heard someone say your name. That would be an example of clairaudience. Or hearing beautiful music that is coming from nowhere is an example of clairaudience. And clairvoyance is the ability to see as spirit, so the ability to see phenomena such as energy fields or auric fields or ghosts and apparitions, or to do remote viewing like we were talking about at the beginning of the show. And claircognizance means clear knowing. And that's the situation where you just know something. You don't know how you know, you don't know why you know, but you just know it. And the difference between claircognizance and precognition, that we were talking about at the beginning of the show, is precognition has to do with predicting something that's going to happen in the future. And you could have a sense of knowing or a sense of seeing about that prediction. But it's something that hasn't happened yet, that's going to happen in the future. Whereas knowing, you know it now, and it's appropriate information for right here, right now. And then the final one that I mentioned that Corey was also asking about is clairsentience, clear feeling. People with this sensitivity often call themselves an empath, being an empath. And that relates to the ability to psychically tune into the emotional levels. So listeners, you can check out on drlesleyphillips.com the psychic test, the psychic quiz, and have fun doing that. What do you think, Corey?
I think so.
Yes, they can do.
I liked it.
They can do our clairvoyance test, our clairaudience test, our clairsentience
Well, first
test.
they test the general and see which is the strongest in them.
Exactly, and then it takes them through to do the others.
And from there, once they do that, if they want to really hone in on it, they can take your psychic blueprint and find out just how strong their psychic abilities are in all of them.
Yeah, and actually it's a really good time to get your psychic blueprint done, because we've got like a
Special.
We've got a special, so it's a good price, but also we've got two ebooks that we're including.
Oh, that's nice.
And you get a personalized book that's all about you as well.
Ooh.
Yes,
I like books about me.
Very cool.
There's not enough of them out there.
The Book of Corey. That reminds me,
That's
because
true.
I just put my newsletter out today, and I wrote an article about the auric field, and so your aura is the book of you, Corey.
That's nice.
It's got all information about you, and just like last month, I did a workshop, an Akashic adventure, a workshop on experiencing some of your own past lives. This month I'm doing an Akashic adventure on the aura, so that you can experience tuning into your own aura.
Ooh.
So
Not ooh, aura.
yes,
Ooh, aura.
check that out on the workshop page of the drlesleyphillips.com website.
I had a question about... What were you talking about before, just a second ago? No, you're not...
Akashic records, the
one
auric
before
aura?
That, the one before that.
Before aura.
Before,
The Book of You,
the
all
Book
about
of
you.
Yeah, you went the Book of You, but you went somewhere else after that. And I was wondering if that was on, where to find that online. I can't remember what it was. It just like
The
zapped right on
workshop, the Akashic adventure.
No. Oh, your newsletter. Is that online?
You have to sign up for it.
Okay.
But on the first page of the website, drlesleyphillips.com, there you can sign up to receive the newsletter.
Oh, okay. I was just wondering.
It's only once a month, and it usually has an article and some links to the latest podcast episodes.
How exciting.
Or recommended podcast episodes.
How exciting.
Tells you what courses are coming up and what workshops are coming up. And everyone who's a subscriber, there's a monthly, what do you call it? Where they get like a special thing for them because they're a subscriber that nobody else gets.
And I'm going to ask you this, but I probably know the answer to this already. You're going to go, oh, darn. Are you offering your subscribers entry into the free reading contest?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yes. Yeah, we're doing a weekly reading contest, listeners. Wow, there's a lot of stuff going on, isn't there, Corey?
Oh, there is.
We don't normally talk about this on the radio show, but
No.
I guess we've gotten into it. So go to drlesleyphillips.com because you'll find all sorts of treasures
Go
available.
under free stuff, and there's all kinds of free stuff.
Well, listeners, please call us because I'd love to have a chat with you, answer your questions live on air. I'll read the phone number out. It's 604-504-7441, extension 4142. 604-504 7441 extension 4142. And in the absence of that, I think we'll call upon our email list of questions.
Okay. Sometimes I wonder if the phone is working.
Yeah, and people do write in to info@drlesleyphillips.com. So if you write to info@drlesleyphillips.com and put in the subject that this is a question for the radio show, then you might get a complimentary insight.
That's right. So here's the first question. And this question is from Rona in... Oh, it doesn't say where. No. Okay, and her question is, my transgender daughter is very emotionally troubled, and I have exhausted all ideas on how to help her. She has been completely distressed since the day that she told me that she's transgender. I have embraced her, but she does not accept her. No, I have embraced her, but she does not accept herself. What can I do as her mother to either help her in the right way or find a better way for myself to cope with her self-destruction? If there is nothing that I can do to help her find her authentic life.
Great question. Thank you for that question. So I'm going to take a look for you and I'll look at you and your relationship with your daughter. And we do use, we don't use people's real names, by the way.
No.
Okay, so let's take a look. You do. I think she did actually say how old her daughter was, and her daughter is about 21. Let's see. And I'm just going quiet, listeners, because sometimes I get the information straight away, and sometimes it just takes me a moment or two to tune in. Well, I was looking at your energy, but I think I'm going to focus on just looking at your daughter's energy, and that might be more helpful. And I do see this energy. It's like a fist. It's like a fist. It's energy that's really locked in there. So I'm actually just going to give her a little healing and see. And I don't know whether I'd call that energy self-hatred, but I would definitely call it. It definitely is not self-acceptance. And to me, it looks like she doesn't know who she is. She does not know who she is. So there's a kind of like an identity crisis. She doesn't know who she is, and the pieces that she has some association with, she hates or feels unacceptable. And so there's almost like a lack of a core central self. And there isn't, because there is a real self there, but she's not in touch with it. And so, I can see why you're concerned about her. But it also feels to me that her life it's a journey of self-discovery and self-revelation. And she's chosen to go into a place of not knowing who she is so that she can find who she is. Because our world's kind of like it's a duality, right? And so often we'll swing far in one direction so that we can rebalance and swing far in the other direction. So it feels to me that there's a clear intention on the level of her soul that's the journey that she's exploring, is who am I, and finding who she is and accepting who she is, but going through the opposite of that in order to get there. And I would say, she is, at 21, she's an adult. And I'm seeing that you can't do it for her. Often the parents would like to do it for their children because they don't want their children to suffer in any way. But you can't do it for her. It is her life and it is her journey. And so I'm seeing that what you can do is be someone who is in touch with themselves and their own higher self, and is someone who is self-accepting and who loves her anyway, regardless of what's going on. Okay, well, we're going to go to a break now. Did you get anything on that one, Corey, or should we just go? We'll go to a break. Thank you for writing in, and we're going to be back after the break with some more questions. Welcome back, listeners. This is Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Lesley and with Corey. And we've been talking about extrasensory perception this evening.
That was a short break.
There was 3 or 4 different things that came on.
Okay.
There was a man speaking Punjabi.
Okay.
Even. Yeah. So what other questions have we got this week?
Okay. I have a question from Nan. Nan, N-A-N, Nan. And I don't know where Nan is. Anyway, she didn't say. Okay, so she's got a question. I've been following your podcasts for a while now and really enjoy them. So thank you very much for these. I want to call in today, but my phone has problems connecting. So I hope this email gets to you on time. I have to make a big life decision this week regarding my work. I love my current job. Lots of room for growth. Get along with superiors. Have a great team and all that. But it's too less pay, so I struggle with my financial life. I have a new opportunity to make money elsewhere, but I would have to quit my current job. I have to decide by Friday. It took me a really long time to find a job where I feel like I belong. I've always felt like a sore thumb at a previous job. Like a sore thumb. I've never heard that one. How do I...
It's another English one.
Yeah, okay. How do I know I'm making the right decision? Your insight, if possible, would be great. Kind regards, Nan.
We say it sticks out like a sore thumb.
Sticks out like a sore thumb.
It's like being the odd man out. I stick out like a sore thumb. Okay.
Like a sore thumb.
So, I think we're a bit late getting to this question because I think she sent it to me last week, but I'll definitely take a look at... So she may have had to make a decision yet, but we'll see what we can see about this for you. Well... I think you might have taken the new job. And if you didn't, change looks like a good idea. But what I was seeing is, it's like the current job is in your comfort zone, and yet, it's not optimal. There are some limits. There's limits around the financial part of it. And so, I'm seeing that the issue was around the belief of that about what you can create for yourself. That you had a limiting belief that said that I can't create something that is everything I want. And the reason you believe it is because I've stuck out like a sore thumb everywhere I've ever worked before here, and this is kind of the best that I've had because I don't stick out like a sore thumb, but yet I'm not making as much money as I really need. And so on one level, you've demonstrated to yourself in the creating of the current job that you can create better than what you had before, because it is better than what you had before, and therefore you can create better than what you have now. And so part of the leap is a leap of faith that this other job that pays more money doesn't have to suck for other reasons, and you don't have to stick out like a sore thumb, that it's quite possible to fit in there like a glove, like a hand in a glove, and earn more money. And so to me, making a move into a better situation looks like a positive change. That's what I'm seeing for that one.
Okay, I got a couple of comments on that. I just did some research the other day on jobs and things like that for a podcast, for a post that I did, and it's interesting because people would figure the number one stimulator for a new job would be money. But it isn't. The number one thing that people look for in a job is to be recognized. Recognition for what they do. And that doesn't mean by getting paid. That means like a pat on the back, feeling part of the organization, being made, being brought in on decision making and things along those lines. It's all about that. It's more fulfillment than it is to be paid. It's very interesting. We are human creatures of wonderful depth. Okay, I have a question. Not a question, this is actually a comment. And maybe you'd like to comment on the comment, Dr. Lesley. So, hi, Dr. Lesley. Just listened to your radio show January 15th. It's important for listeners to know that often anxiety is covering deeply rooted subconscious traumatic experiences, and the anxiety can be felt when people experience unconscious reminders in their daily lives.
Yes, correct. I think we must have been doing a show on stress and anxiety that night. Yes, thank you, listener, for writing in. You're absolutely right that people, there can be buried memories and also cellular level energy traumas. So, for example, if you experience the trauma before you could walk and talk, it's a very real thing, but it's stored as in an energetic way in the cells. And then when you might be an adult now who can walk and talk, but when something happens in your environment that stimulates that cellular memory, you can end up feeling anxious and have no idea why that is. Because it's a cellular level response. So thank you for writing into us and sharing that information.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is that stimuli doesn't have to be in any specific manner. You can smell something, and it'll give you that reaction. You can taste something. You can hear something. Hearing is very strong. I mean, hearing is you hear a song, and it brings you back to emotional experiences that you had somewhere in life. And smell too is taste too. I mean, tasting your mother's cooking or something very special that you used to eat or something along those lines. So, and trauma is the basis not only of anxiety, but also it's 85% of all back pain is caused, and pain is caused by some sort of a trauma, some sort of an anxiety in your life that's exposing itself through your back, because that's where all the tension lies. I have another sort of a comment that I'd like you to comment on, Dr. Lesley, so if you'd listen carefully to this. I've had a sexual awakening. Due to my childhood sexual abuse, I was not able to connect to nor channel Earth's erotic energy. But now with healing, I can do this. I am seeing this energy in strong, vital trees that grow so erect and beautiful. It's a force of nature. I'm not alone in this ability either. Pagans and others around the world are connecting to this energy for personal pleasure and to connect to the earth in wonderful ways. Indeed, I believe that this energy has been warped and hijacked. As well, religious dogma and abuse has stopped people from connecting to this. I believe this energy is trapped somehow in the earth and needs to flow again freely, mainly through the help of people who can who can connect to and channel this. This energy is for everyone and should not be controlled, manipulated, or stopped by dark forces. I also believe that indigenous peoples used to do this so naturally, and this was destroyed by religious dogma imposed by colonial forces. I have also discovered that connecting to Earth's natural erotic energy during lovemaking can really improve the sex. Delicious in parentheses. I hope that you will consider this important topic for a radio show in 2019. The ecosexual movement is worldwide.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Well, that's,
Dr. Lesley says okay. She's commented on it.
There's lots of different aspects there.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the energy of planet Earth. So, yeah, we can channel the Earth energy through our system. Our bodies are made up of Earth energy, so it's very natural for us to allow the flow. And the Earth herself is our larger body, so I often think of us as cells on the body of the Earth. She's often referred to as our Earth Mother. And so it's very natural for us to run the energy of the planet through our bodies. And we can run that energy, rise it up through the feet and through energy channels in the legs and up into the chakra system. What she might be referring to as the erotic energy of the Earth could be the Earth energy itself, but it also could be the Earth's Kundalini energy, which is the life force energy of the Earth. And we all have our own natural life force energy, but we can also run the life force energy of the Earth through our system. And it is both of these energies are healing and transformative and have the capacity to raise the vibrational frequency because they help us clear and let go of the denser energies that we have a tendency to accumulate in our human journey and our human lives. So I would validate to this lady that all that she's noticing within herself about the planet and the planet's energy and getting in touch with the energy of the planet. And, of course, running those energies of the Earth and the cosmos have the effect of clearing out your energy system and opening up your chakras and just getting everything moving properly and functioning properly. And the more properly your energy system functions, the clearer the chakras and the energy channels. That can feel ecstatic. When the chakras are in alignment and all the energies lined up in a correct way, that can feel blissful and ecstatic, exactly like you are describing. And running your Kundalini energy can result in feelings of ecstasy as well. And so I'm just checking my notes about what else you said that I can comment on there. Oh, and talking about running the different energies during lovemaking. Yes, so there are energy practices, tantric energy practices where you consciously run and work with energy during lovemaking. So, and then she said this energy is for everyone and shouldn't be controlled or manipulated or stopped by dark forces. Yes, it is the energy for everyone, and we all have these energies. I mean, ultimately, they can't really be stopped by dark forces, apart from just to brainwash us so we don't know about it. Do you think I've answered everything she said, Corey?
I think you've touched on almost
most
everything.
Of it.
Yeah. I don't think any religion should be allowed to determine anything about your personal sexual life in any way, shape, or form. I mean, the government used to it. When we watch some of the old television shows, especially from Great Britain, it talks a lot about homosexuality being illegal and going to jail, and it seems so. This many years later, it seems so archaic to think at one time we lived in a society that would actually put homosexuals in jail just for the sake of being homosexual. That's terrible. That is just, I don't see. It's so different now to look at that in our society, and I think the same should hold true for religions, whether or not your sexual preferences are your sexual preferences. As long as they don't hurt anybody else, there shouldn't be any issues around them. What do you think?
Yeah, I was just going to make one more comment,
Okay.
and that is about the human consciousness grid and the energy grid of the Earth, because there is a planetary grid of energy, and humanity itself forms a consciousness grid over the planet, and those energies work together in a mass consciousness, global consciousness level, and so yes, the more people get in touch with these energies, and the more they heal the energy blocks within themselves, then the more our species is elevated, and the planet as well. So on that positive note, we are headed towards the end of the show, and actually next week we're going to be interviewing a lady, and she's a romance coach, is she, Corey? A relationship coach?
Yeah, she's I think the romance, sexuality, she's dance, sexuality through dance and things like that.
Yeah, so, there was a little bit of a sexuality theme this evening in our questions, because we had a transgender question and a sexual awakening comment. So I guess we'll be continuing on that theme a little bit next week, because we'll have someone who's focus is in that realm.
But that might not work for us up here, because she's from Australia. She's in Australia, so everything might be backwards there. That was funny, Corey.
Hilarious. Well, listeners, you've been tuning in to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Lesley and with Corey, and we've enjoyed being here live in the studio this evening, and we enjoy bringing you all of this different information under the umbrella of metaphysics and spirituality. Feel free to write to us at info@drlesleyphillips.com with your questions and suggestions for what we should do on the show. This lady suggested the ecosexual movement. I don't know what that is, and I'm going to look it up.
Yeah, we'll probably cover that next week.
Yes. All right, well, bye for now.
Thank you for joining us. You've been listening to another Unlocking Your Truth podcast by Dr. Lesley Phillips. For more information, go to our website at drlesleyphillips.com. That's drlesleyphillips.com, where you can ask questions or send her an email, and there's many free gifts on there for you as well. You can also find the questions that were asked during this show at the website on our free card reading podcast page, where you'll find a full list of them. Come back again.